Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Wednesday, February the 19th, 2025. I'm David Menzies and my co-host. Well, folks, let me tell you a bit about my co-host, shall I? Did you know, folks, that on this very day in 1913, the people that produced Cracker Jacks first started inserting little toys in those Cracker Jack boxes, and my co-host, she remains devastated and depressed that despite trying, there ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. That's a Meatloaf reference. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunreed. How you doing there, Sheila?
I'm doing great, David. It is great to have you back on the live stream with me. You had 2 weeks off. Wow, that's a lot. It's also National Preventing Plagiarism Day.
Jeez.
That's a message to you folks in the mainstream media. Quit stealing my work, claiming it as your own, and then calling me not a journalist. You can't have it both ways, guys.
You know what I love, Sheila, not in a good way, is when they'll rip off our video and play it as though, it's originally source video, but they actually have the chutzpah to remove the Rebel News bug on the video.
Mm-hmm.
Like they censor the original content of whom they're stealing from. How is that ethical?
It's not. It's the mainstream media. It's not. Actually, today, the gun show, that's my weekly Wednesday paywalled show. It's part of our Rebel News premium content. If you want to subscribe, it's $8 a month. That's only $2 a week. But we also realize that Justin Trudeau is picking your pocket harder than ever. So if you want to watch free clips of the show, you can do that on YouTube and Rumble, usually by the weekend. But my discussion this week is with Mike Fagelman of Honest Reporting Canada.
Oh.
And he does... Anyways, if you want to subscribe, it's rebelnewsplus.com. Mike Fagelman of Honest Reporting Canada, they hold the mainstream media to account for their pernicious anti-Israel bias, including the CBC. And it's wild how, it's bad. But when you go to Honest Reporting Canada and then you see all of it right there and realize, never once do they provide a counterbalance whatsoever to the people they claim are human rights activists for Palestinians. Anyway, it's there's something really wrong with the mainstream media these days.
Sheila, you're absolutely right. Honest Reporting, they do fantastic work.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest serial violator, it might be a photo finish between CBC and BBC, but I'm not making a joke. You would actually get less biased coverage of the Middle East from Al Jazeera than CBC.
For sure.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera might have a Jew on once in a while, not CBC. These guys will have people who they claim are like human rights activists, but then they never like it's the worst form, as Mike said. The worst form of bias is bias by omission, denying the public the full picture.
Yeah.
And so when you drill out and you're like, oh, and human rights activists, okay, they must care about human rights. And then you go out and it's like, oh, are they celebrating October 7th? Those human rights activists, they never give you exactly who you're dealing with, which leaves the viewer having to Google for more context because the mainstream media, with all your money, will never give it to you.
Yeah, but that's the point, though, Sheila.
Yeah.
If these were honest mistakes, listen, we're not
Oh,
perfect.
it's not honest.
Yeah, but in case of the CBC's coverage regarding Israel, they will be caught in a blatant lie. They will do a retraction. They will apologize, but just wait a couple of days because the same garbage is going to go back up on their website. They are serial offenders. As I say in Vegas, the fix is in. These aren't honest mistakes, is what I'm saying, Sheila. This is an ideological bias, and we're paying for it with our tax dollars.
Right. And like, that's the thing. I don't pretend that I'm not biased. I just don't expect you to pay for it unwillingly. You can watch me or not. And furthermore, I'm honest about it. I'm not going to pretend that I don't have a particular viewpoint, that I'm old, middle of the road Sheila. I'm not. And I want you all to know that so that you can understand when you're watching my content, that's where I come from. You can watch my content, you can watch somebody on the left and make up your own mind, but I'm not going to omit my own bias, which again is a form of dishonesty when I'm telling you my stories. I should actually tell everybody what we're doing here now that we've bashed the CBC for a good 5 minutes, although I could do it all day.
Yeah, and by the way, Sheila, I just want to clarify something. As you rightfully said, I was away for 2 weeks, but all you slackers out there thinking I went off on vacation. No, it was a staycation. It was a special assignment, shall we say. So, the likes of Sheila and I, and for that matter, Ezra, we really don't take vacation days. This job continually interferes with that.
You guys ever seen
Not
me
that I'm
not at
complaining.
work? Have you guys ever noticed a gap in any Sheila Gunn Reid journalism in the last 10 years? I dare you to go back and find any.
Exactly.
That should tell you the extent of my vacations around here. But I should tell everybody what we're doing. And for those of you who are retuning in to the show because you saw that your beloved David is back, we have some news about the live streams and new old ways that you can support us. So faithful viewers, we're always streaming on Rumble. If you want the full unvarnished version of Rebel News, you will find it on Rumble, because Rumble is a free speech platform that does not believe in censorship. So you want Rumble and all the context, all the facts, you're going to get it there. And you can leave us a Rumble rant to support the work that we do over here at Rebel News. That's their paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we'll read it on air. If it's under that, I cannot guarantee that we will read it on air, but we will do our very best to get to it. Now, news sort of dropped last week after some very hard work by the editorial team at Rebel News and the upper echelons of the executive office. We have been remonetized on YouTube. So there are a couple ways that you can support us there. And I should tell you, we are not going to compromise our ideals to maintain our monetization on YouTube. What we're going to do is, if we end up being a little too truthy, you just won't see it on YouTube. You're going to have to go over to Rumble. And if we end up talking about topics that will run up against YouTube's terms of service, we'll just cut the feed and you can watch us on Rumble. But you can leave us a super chat now on Rumble, and you can, after the fact, I believe you can leave us a super thanks. So if you don't get to watch the show live, but the show is there for you to watch, leave us a super thanks, and we appreciate you so much. So that is it. Let's get into the news of the day.
And by the way, Sheila, can you believe how much the world has changed in less than 1 month since Donald Trump went back to the White House? I mean, And the ripple effect, of us being monetized again with YouTube. But as you alluded to, we have to be careful what we post. They're a little more free speechy, but they're not total First Amendment adherents. Not
Oh,
yet,
no,
folks.
no. Let's not kid ourselves. Although they are far less vague in their terms of service. So at least like now, if we broke the rules, we can at least understand which rule we broke, which is not how
Yeah.
it used to be at all. They're just like, you broke the rules. We're like, which one? That one? Which one? Point to it. You couldn't. But at least now they're being a little bit more clear. And as I said, I would never ask the journalists at Rebel News to compromise their morals or their conscience. We will always have Rumble to post on, and that will be the place where you will get always the full unvarnished version of this story.
Khaleesi, for you, I would compromise my morals. Oh, just how much I honor you. What do you give me a wins for? I wish I had a minion I could boss around.
I don't. Okay, let's get into breaking news this morning.
Yes.
I think this bodes very well for Tamara Leach. Freedom Convoy. He describes himself as an organizer. I'm not necessarily convinced of the extent to which he organized anything, but Freedom Convoy participant Pat King was sentenced to 3 months house arrest today. The Crown wanted 10 years. King's defense highlighted his more recent compliance with bail conditions and the personal and financial toll the legal proceedings have taken on him, including his health, by the way. So his 3 months is a conditional sentence, so served under house arrest. And of course, for anybody who's been following along, in relation to his participation in the peaceful 2022 demonstrations in the nation's capital against the COVID mandates and other instances of government overreach. He was convicted in November on 5 charges, including mischief and disobeying a court order. So that's good news.
It's Sheila, it's great news, given that the Crown wanted 10 years hard time. Now, listen, I'm usually not a fan of house arrest, but in this case, I am. And let's face it, Sheila, house arrest, well, basically more than half the bureaucracy is under house arrest, aren't they?
By choice. They love it.
Yeah.
They love
it. You can work from home. You can play from home. You can shop for your groceries at home. House arrest in 2025 is just another day at the office for so many people, especially during a brutal winter. It's not a penalty. We had covered last year about a convicted pedophile that got house arrest. And that is an absolute a travesty because
I'm pro death penalty in that instance.
Yeah.
Like the fact that person's getting house arrest is outrageous.
Exactly. But in this case, and I know his defense asked for time served, but Sheila, the way I feel about house arrest, that's no penalty at all. So given that the Crown ludicrously wanted a decade of hard time.
10 years. 10 years for a peaceful protest. There's no indication that Pat King was violent.
Yep.
He may have been loose with his language. But I don't think anybody can argue with that. I think even Pat might agree with that. The court took into account that he had already served extensive time in pretrial custody. They gave him, I think, credit for 9 months of time served. 9 months for mischief and disobeying a court order. And so they 10 years in total, or 12 months in total to be served in the community. And so he's got some bail conditions, whatever. He's going to have to check in with a parole or probation officer, but he can get out for medical appointments and for work and probably church. And he's got kids. He should be able to see his kids. He is a prickly dude, but he's not 10 years in jail like a terrorist. And how dare the Crown have asked for this?
And Sheila, in terms of those conditions, I notice one of them is, I believe, 30 days community service, where he needs to serve it at a men's shelter. And I only
Good.
bring that up as being somewhat bizarre because they're specifying the gender of the shelter. We live in a day and age where somebody who looks like Pat King could say
Well,
he identifies as female and be a resident of a shelter. But
right.
if you want to volunteer, suddenly sex is a thing again.
Right.
I just find that bizarre.
I noticed that. I thought it was funny. I thought, okay, well, you can identify as a female for the purposes of shacking up inside of the shelter. But they want to make sure that no males volunteer at the shelter. It's almost like they've halfway acknowledged that the presence of a big burly dude around vulnerable women who need to feel safe might be problematic. Now, if they could just apply that to the men who are trying to stay inside the shelter, that would be great. I think we got to be careful, though, with the rest of this conversation because YouTube. So maybe let's bop ahead to Carney stuff.
Oh, yes.
Before David and I completely undo all the hard work we've done over recent days. We've got just a couple of chats, then we'll move ahead to Carney. So Guillotine Press gives us $10. That's US, and says, perhaps Trump should offer to delay tariffs if Canada holds an election. That would be election meddling. I wouldn't want China to do that. But wouldn't it be great if the Liberals did the right thing by Canadians and give Canadians what they wanted?
Oh, and what do we want? Well, Donald Trump is a businessman. He lives his life by art of the deal. And I'm telling you, Sheila, if we put it to a referendum, Canada becoming the 51st state, and and the quid pro quo is Canadian money at par. So in other words, you have a Canadian 100, you exchange it for a US 100. Hey, the net value of Canadians goes up by what, 35% overnight? Sign me up, Yankee Doodle Dandy.
The Liberals would just undo it all by printing money. You know that. You know that. Mark Carney will just undo it all, Mr. Central Banker, by printing a bunch of money and then saying, wonder where all this inflation came from. Just came from nowhere. And we've got another chat here, and it is from Michaelo Goods, who says, nothing to say this time, just listening. Thank you, guys. And that's $20 Canadian. So, those dollars are coming in Canadian. Those must be super chats. That's new. Thanks, guys, for taking advantage of our hard work being remonetized on YouTube.
Thank you, Michaelo.
Let's get into Mark Carney.
Must we?
Yeah. He is so much like Trudeau. It's almost like Trudeau is an empty vessel. Yeah. Where Mark Carney's been pouring his bad ideas for the last 10 years. So Mark Carney, in English, will say one thing and French say another. Sound familiar? For example, last week in Kelowna, he said, I'm going to use the emergency powers of the government. And I said use, but what I mean is abuse the emergency powers of the government to get nationally significant energy projects done. What he means by that is green energy projects done. He would never use that for pipelines. Wow. And but he sort of let that, he didn't make, well, I'm not going to say he didn't make that clear, but he made it real clear when he was giving a French language interview where he said, pipelines through Quebec, not if Quebec doesn't want them. No, we'll definitely veto it. And let's just watch this. He says it in French, but just to give context to this article, let's watch that really quick.
Monsieur Poilievre, il parle hier de Energy East, le projet oléoduc. Il n'a mentionné jamais le Québec, jamais les nations premières, jamais d'autres provinces. Il est comme l'empereur, il décide tout se déroule. C'est pas le Canada. OK, premier point.
Mais donc, vous n'imposeriez jamais un pipeline au Québec ou à d'autres provinces?
N'imposerai jamais.
Jamais.
Une
loi d'urgence.
Mais je vais utiliser mon gouvernement, si j'étais premier ministre, mon gouvernement utiliserait nos pouvoirs d'urgence afin d'accélérer des projets qui sont dans l'intérêt national. Okay. Mais il faut il faut le décider avec les provinces, avec les Nations Unies.
Si une province dit non, vous ne passez pas de tuyau.
Oui, absolument.
Vous n'imposez
jamais
pas.
au Québec, on ne le dit pas.
You know what, Sheila? I'm going to say kudos to Mark Carney for basically stating his position. And I put that in contrast just a half hour ago on my drive into Rebel News World headquarters in Toronto. I was listening to Vashi Capellos of Bell Media asking Merritt Stiles, she's the NDP leader, if you were the premier of the province of Ontario, would you greenlight an east-west pipeline? She had to ask the question 3 times and she still didn't get an answer. It was word salad baffle gab. But here you have Carney saying, oh no, absolutely, I'll veto it. Oh, absolutely, I'll use the Emergencies Act to get my agenda through. Absolutely, I'm an elitist and a globalist, and that's what Canada needs right now. So, you know, we know what we're getting with this cat, Sheila.
Do we though? Because he says something, my gut, this is what he said in English in Kelowna after he laughed off the opioid crisis in a place that is particularly hard hit by the opioid crisis, but never to fear. The people in the crowd were too bored by listening to funeral director Carney's speech that they never picked up on it. But what he said was something that my government will do is use all the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate major projects that we need in order to build this economy and take on the Americans. And that's when he looked at the camera and gave that like cutesy smirk to it. So which one is it? You're going to invoke the emergency, like he's Mr. Tough Guy in English and Mr. like, oh my goodness, we don't want to make the province of Quebec, the La Belle Province, mad at us by asking them to uphold the obligations of Confederation while they are the recipients of all those transfer payments.
Sheila, I am just absolutely baffled and shocked that with just days ahead of the 3rd anniversary of the brutal dismantling of the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, any politician would use the words Emergencies Act.
Right?
It is so debased.
Poison.
We saw what happened to peaceful protesters. We saw what happened to our beloved colleague, Alex Lavoie, getting shot in the thigh with some kind of cylinder. We saw what happened to thousands of Canadians having their bank accounts frozen. So the idea that this is, I don't know, political capital, that, oh yeah, I've got that, Uber arrow in my quiver and I'm ready to use it. I think for like-minded people like ourselves, this is toxic. This is poison.
Yeah, but again, that shows how out of touch he is. Never forget, he's the guy who wrote the op-ed saying, we need to treat these guys like seditionists and we need to follow the money. And then shortly thereafter, the Liberals froze bank accounts, i.e. followed the money, and started treating them like the Freedom Convoy, like a seditionist terror plot in the nation's capital. He wrote this on February 7th. 1 week later, guess what the Liberals did? This. So if you are thinking you're getting something different from Mark Carney, you're not. You're getting Trudeau without the charisma of his stupid socks. That's what you're getting.
And speaking of which, as Ace cameraman Lincoln J and I found out last night when Carney was doing 2 fundraisers in one evening in Mississauga and Brampton, speaking of following the money, $1,500 if you want a hobnob with Mark Carney, which is a discount of $250 compared to a Trudeau fundraiser. But get a load of this, Sheila. More similarities with blackface. He's late for his own event. And imagine that, disrespecting people that are forking over $1,500. And now he is going into the venue through the tradesman's entrance to avoid any prickly questions from journalists or any impolite chants from protesters, just like blackface himself.
That's the closest he's ever going to get coming in the tradesman entrance to people who actually work with their hands and their backs. Can you imagine him going to like the steelworkers, to a factory, or to a fab yard, the way Polyev does. Like Polyev will do like 3 of those in a day, going to like a pipeline manufacturing place, a refinery, mod yard, like he'll do a bunch of those in a day, and he doesn't seem out of sorts with the
No.
blue collar folks. Sort of like Trump. Trump, for a billionaire, really relatable with the blue collar types. I cannot see Mark Carney, who will lay out on the grass with Ghislaine Maxwell, being the kind of guy who would ingratiate himself well to the blue collar types.
Well, if he does one of those photo ops, it'll be another play out of Blackface's playbook, which is to say, Sheila, he'll take off his tie, he'll remove his jacket, he'll roll up his shirt sleeves, kind of like saying to the hardworking blue collar men and women, "See, I'm just one of you. I'm just one of the
just one of
gang."
you.
You know,
Yeah.
how do I hold a hammer?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We've got also a couple more chats. I'll get to those in a sec. You know what? I'll get to those right now. I don't want to leave them in the dust. And I'll do the sticker pack ad read too, if that's okay, Olivia. And then we'll go into further Mark Carney stuff. I'm just trying to keep the show tight because I know David needs the studio. So are you ready to show your support in style? Sticker Mule has a fantastic offer just for you for a limited time. If you are not buying the anti-American garbage of the mainstream media in Canada, you can grab free Trump stickers. Yes, you heard that right. Free. Whether you want to decorate your laptop, car, or office space, or just annoy your CBC watching friends and family. These high quality durable stickers are perfect for making a statement. Just imagine how great they'll look, and they're super easy to apply. Here's how it works. Head on over to stickerpack.com, sign up, claim your free stickers, and watch the fun unfold. Don't miss this exclusive offer. Stock is limited, so act fast. Spread the word. Let your voice be heard with Sticker Mule's awesome stickers. Once again, visit Sticker Pack, that's PAC, like Political Action Committee, today and grab your free Trump stickers before they're gone. So, David, I regret to inform you that I'm about to read a chat from our friend Annalisa 1964.
Yes.
I know. What I mean is I regret to inform myself because
That's right.
here we go. She sent us $20, which I'm so grateful for. I tease her, I tease David, but boy, we sure like Annalisa around the network. I can't wait, or she says, I can't watch the show again, but I noticed it was my favorite Rebels on today. Sending a big hug to you both. And of course, hang on.
Say it.
And of course, an extra big huggy wuggy
Oh,
to my sweet Menzies.
oh my goodness, Annalisa, you were, if I feel down in the dumps, Sheila Gunn Reid, I just dredge up an old show and read again and again an Annalisa super chat because that is just so kind. Thank you, Annalisa, and thank you for the donation too. Appreciate it.
Oh, she's not done with you, which means she's not done with me yet. She's got another. She also gives us $6.99 and says, oh, one more reason I forgot to mention. Please tell my sweet Menzies he looks super power hour duper handsome to me today.
Oh, please, I pray Lady Manzoid is tuned in. So next time she thinks I'm yelling at me again, well, you know what? There are people out there who are beautiful fans like Annalisa. Thank you so much, Annalisa.
I'm oscillating between a dry heave and full body goose flesh.
Why?
Anyway, we got to keep going. We got Audra Halverson gives us $5 and she doesn't say anything. Audra, if you have a chat you want to send us, write it there. Don't send us more money unless you want to. But if you forgot to attach your chat there, hopefully somebody who's monitoring the chat in HQ or otherwise can send us that, so we are not taking Audra's money without reciprocating the services of reading it on air to her. We appreciate that though. We've got Michael Barrett. He sent a letter yesterday about carbon tax Carney, saying he must come clean with Canadians about his business dealings, financial interests, and any potential conflicts of interest. No more delays or excuses. He must disclose all of this now. What is he hiding now? Up until now, Mark Carney has been able to dance around ethics disclosures by not being an official employee of the federal government, but rather just an advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is the Liberal Party leader. So he was an advisor to the leader of the Liberal Party, who incidentally in our Westminster parliamentary system is also the Prime Minister. So he weaseled through this loophole. And so now they're saying, oh, you want to be the Prime Minister now? Tell us all of your Brookfield holdings and otherwise. Like, for example, tell us more about the approvals process for that pipeline that you guys built in Brazil, and then the other one that's in the UAE. You know, are those nation-building pipeline projects? Did somebody oppose them? And you just said, what veto? What Indigenous veto? What local veto are we going to overrule to make sure our pipeline project got built with our investment dollars? Anyway.
But Sheila,
The gall.
did I hear you right? Did you say he was an advisor to the Prime Minister? Because Mark Carney keeps advertising himself as an outsider.
Yes. Outsider, the most outsider you've ever seen. By outsider, outside of ethics rules, while being right inside the ear of our idiot stick Prime Minister.
Incredible.
The Conservatives tried to call Carney before to testify about his business dealings way back in April. He refused to come. Imagine, he just decided I'm not coming, and the Liberals are like, yeah, we're not making our friend Mark. And even then, the Conservatives are saying he's the next Prime Minister. And he's already the de facto finance minister, if not the de facto prime minister, depending on how much say-so you think Justin Trudeau has had in the last little bit. So Canadians deserve to know who's running the show, and he wouldn't come. I'm just going to read a little bit from this letter sent. Justin Trudeau managed, this is from Michael Barrett, who I'm not sure, in my fantasy football parliament cabinet, I don't know where Michael Barrett fits in, but it should be prominently. I know that Larry Brock is my AG. I gotta do some like graphing out this weekend to see and then send my submissions as if somebody listens to me. So he says, Justin Trudeau has managed to protect you from ethics disclosure by appointing you to a board consisting of only you, which provided him with advice on economic growth. This procedure differs from what most advisors to the Prime Minister would face precisely because the standard process would require you to disclose your conflicts of interest. During that time, you also advocated for heat pumps, a project tied to Brookfield Asset Management, which owns a heat pump company that stood to benefit massively from any government support. Just hands in the cookie jar all over the place. While serving in that role, you were also the chair of Brookfield Asset Management at a time when Brookfield was actively lobbying the Liberal government for $10 billion in taxpayer funds.
Wow.
It keeps going. Additionally, your various global positions included roles on the board of Stripe, the global advisory board of PIMCO, and the chairmanship of Bloomberg. Yet you have failed to disclose how any of these roles might have influenced the advice you gave the government. In a recent interview with Rosemary Barton, you refused to answer whether you would provide ethics disclosure before an election, simply stating that you would comply with all the ethics guidelines, conflicts of interest guidelines, blind trust, blah, blah, blah. Let's be clear about why those guidelines are insufficient for someone in your particular position. The Public Office Holder Conflict of Interest Act does not require you to submit an ethics disclosure until 60 days after you are first appointed to a government role. In your case, this would mean 60 days after you potentially assume the role of Prime Minister. You would have up to 120 days thus to sign your public declaration. This means you could be Prime Minister for up to 4 months before Canadians see your ethics disclosure. More than enough time for you to make decisions that benefit your rich and well-connected friends, and even after holding an election. Canadians expect transparency and deserve better. You must disclose all forms of compensation you received while advising Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party of Canada, and any compensation you have received or will receive as a result of your departure from your various positions. You must show transparency on this matter. A potential Prime Minister of Canada must not hide his ethics disclosures from Canadians. I think he would actually be more ethically challenged than Randy Boissonnault and Justin Trudeau combined. I do.
Well, I can't think of a lower benchmark unless we're talking about the urine that lobsters leave behind on the bottom of the ocean. But Sheila, what you just read there, it's beyond a conflict of interest. It's conflicts within conflicts, the lack of transparency. I mean, do we even know, Sheila, if his principal residence or if he has a residence in Canada?
I don't know. Where do his kids go to school? Where did they go to school? They're like, in the United States, this kind of stuff would send you to jail. Here it might get you a slap on the wrist. You might have to pay $100 fine one day, which is, when you are screwing the Canadian taxpayer to the tune of millions of dollars. It's the cost of doing business. It's a line item in your business plan. There's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laws out of the corner of my eye, which if you did this in the United States, you would be sent to jail. In Canada, we wouldn't even know the full extent of your wrist slap until 4 months after you are the most powerful politician in the country.
Oh, Sheila, do we ever need a Doge in this country, don't we?
I'm working on it. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part with our Expose the Waste campaign.
Yeah. Oh no, you are.
Which
Indeed.
we'll talk about a little bit today's stories. I'm cranking out 3 stories a day on this stuff, and I'm still feel like I'm under a mountain of it. And it's big money, little money, but you keep track of the dimes and the dollars take care of themselves. Like it's just everything is a spending priority as long as it is. Our chief cultural export seems to be wokeism into the world. Forget oil. We're exporting wokeism in the form of foreign aid to Africa, Indonesia, Buenos Aires,
Pakistan.
Yeah.
I'm sure goes over great there.
One of the most religiously conservative places in the world. Tell us more about your trans people. The government's not going to, once they identify, the government's not going to come take them and take them away forever. Maybe immolate them. We won't do any of that. Anyways, we've got another video from Mark Carney. In the middle of a trade war, making sure we insult our American friends for doing their best to do exactly that, attack diversity spending and targets in the federal government. What could possibly go wrong?
I look around this great room, we're all Canadians, but all different identities when we're all Canadians, and we celebrate that. America is a melting pot. In America, diversity is now an insult, and it soon will be a crime to promote it. That's not a line. That's a reality. That's what's happening in America. It's a shame. Maybe they'll snap out of it eventually, but that's what they are now.
Sheila, how can diversity be a crime? How could that be enforced? What would the penalties be? I mean, that is a preposterous thing for someone who has aspirations to be our prime minister to say that diversity will soon be a crime in the U.S. What? What do you base that on?
Right. So what are they going to do? Just go around arresting cultural minorities? Is that what he says President Trump is going to do? Look at his cabinet, by the way.
Yeah.
Have we looked at his cabinet? Women, minorities. I think it's probably the most diverse cabinet, although not diverse for the sake of it. It's diverse based on competency. That President Trump has surrounded himself with competent people who happen to be people from ethnic or otherwise minority groups. It makes no sense. Diversity is going to be illegal in the melting pot of the United States. Sure, Mark. Sure. By the way, was he in between bingo callings there? Like, what is with that crowd? First of all, the microphone does sound like the bingo caller's microphone.
Yeah.
But look at the crowd. They're just like, when do we get to play the next round of bingo?
Yeah, no, the acoustics were horrible.
Right.
But Sheila, the falsehood of Republicans being bigots, and we saw it manifest again, thanks to Hollywood in a way, and that was at the Saturday Night Live anniversary show. Tom Hanks playing the caricature of a MAGA supporter, and by the way, I will say. I love Tom Hanks as the artist. Yes, I cried at the end of Polar Express. What do you want, folks? I'm only human. But the joke, the so-called punchline, is when the moderator walks up to him to shake his hands, and the moderator is black. And I think super producer Olivia has the clip. Why don't we? I'll stop talking. I'll show you what happened, folks, if you haven't seen this disgrace.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey, now speaking of church, can I say something? If more folks went to church, we wouldn't be in this mess we're in now.
You know what? I agree with you, Doug. I'd like to shake your hand, sir. Here we go.
No.
Oh, no. It's just a handshake. Yeah, it's just a handshake.
It's not even funny.
You're welcome in Black Jeopardy anytime.
All right. Well, thank you, my brother. Maybe I'll start a show for you to come on, and we'll call it What Jeopardy?
No. We don't need it. We don't need it.
Oh,
Unbelievable, Sheila. You would never see someone in the MAGA community react like that. If they have, I've never witnessed it, or I've never seen it recorded on video. When you look at President Trump's election results, in every minority, it was a spike upward from the last two elections. So what is Hollywood and what are the Democrats saying? That the minorities are dumb people? You don't know what you're doing when you vote for big bad orange man. I don't know what was in Tom Hanks' mind to say, yeah, I'll go along with this. To me, it's almost borderline defamation. I mean, if it weren't done, in an entertainment sense. And I was more saddened than maddened by this, because it is simply a falsehood. It's something that doesn't exist.
It's completely based on a falsehood. So Trump actually doubled his vote share. Now, he didn't get the majority, but doubled his share of young Black men, which helped him among key it helped him. So about 3 in 10 Black men under the age of 45 voted for Trump, roughly double the number he got in 2020.
Yeah.
So what? Are the Democrats mad that they don't own the votes and the minds of these young Black men? That young Black men want to break the cycle of poverty through economic growth and prosperity? Who's the racist here?
Oh, Sheila,
this is just nothing but racism from Tom Hanks. It's revolting.
No, there is an answer to your question. You don't have to put that as a rhetorical question. Who are the racists? It's the Democrats are the racists.
Of course.
This is the party of slavery. This is the party of segregation. This is the party of Jim Crow laws, okay? These were all Democrat, not Republican initiatives.
Yeah. Yes. By the way, I know that we've got to hit an ad break. We've got some Rebel News ads, and then, Yankee was kind enough to find us Audra Halverson's chat, which did get missed. She says, "How can you trust a man like Carney with his shoes are $2,000? It's because, which is true, it's because he's rich enough to dress ugly." And when I looked at his shoes, and I'm like, those are no scream in hell. Those are just a practical shoe, which, I mean, look, I'm the first person who enjoys a good practical boot. Ask my Blundstones. But it reminded me of, look at those. Those are ugly even for me.
You know what? I will say one thing. If we can go back to the original picture, Olivia, I will say one thing. That is a proper goaltending stance. I'm an old gumper myself, and that is how you are supposed to stand in net. He's holding the stick correctly, and he's got the knees bent, and he's in a crouch. So that's all I got in terms of say something nice about Mark Carney.
I think he looks like a goblin. I think he does. Like, he looks like Gargamel. But it reminded me, his shoes and being able to spend a lot of money on ugly things reminded me of the mud smeared designer jeans craze of a few years ago, where like all the designers were bringing out this like mud smeared stuff because they wanted to I don't know what the right word is, a vacation in a blue collar lifestyle for a bit. And it was like mud smeared jeans, mud smeared jackets. And these were like $425 US to dress like they put on my Wranglers and actually did some work for a living. Like it just, that I think is indicative of wealth, is when you're wealthy enough to dress ugly. And
You know, Sheila, I don't get fashion. All I'll say about this.
look at me. I would just wear merch.
Well,
That's what I do.
Speaking of merchandise, I remember it was about 25 years ago. It was like the last day of operation for the season for Canada's Wonderland. And they were blowing things out 60, 70% off. And I went over and I saw a rack of Superman t-shirts at 70% off. I said, hey, I love that logo. And I go, oh, look at this. It's being mucked up. And then this one's faded. And I'm going through the entire rack. And an employee came up to me and she said, can I help you? And I go, what is it with, like, are all these shirts returns? Because they all look scuffed up. And she went, I'll never forget this, Sheila. Oh, no, they're pre-distressed.
Right.
I said, no, thank you. I'll distress my own shirts over the course of a decade or two of wearing. Who's buying new merchandise made to look old and torn and muddy and crappy? Doesn't that go against the idea of buying something new in the first place?
How long has it been since you had teenagers? Anyway, let's hit an ad break, and then we've got a quick thing to talk about. Our friend April Hutchinson is up to something in Edmonton. I was going to say my city, but definitely not my city. Close, but no cigar. Anyways, let's hit an ad break, and then we'll move into the DEI stuff, and then I think we're probably out of time. So let's do that.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
And Sheila, I don't want to miss out on the news of the day, because if this project doesn't have a name yet, I've got the perfect one. It's called the White Elephant Express. Trudeau announcing an infrastructure project, evidently Canada's largest ever. I don't know how that would be the case in terms of the CPR.
I know what it is. Already. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it's a high-speed rail line. This has been talked about forever, folks. It's
Monorail.
typically Quebec City to the Windsor corridor. This will just be Quebec City to Toronto. I'll make you some predictions right now. It'll come in millions or even billions over budget. But as much as this is so wonderful and it's going to be completely green, it's no diesel, it's all electrification, missing from the announcement, as always, because this is government with your money, folks, ROI, return on investment. These kind of trains work well in places like Japan, in certain European countries where there is huge density. The fact is, between Toronto and Quebec, Sheila, that incredible population density does not work. There is alternatives. You drive on the highway, air. I don't know. I know Greyhound's not a thing anymore, but I think there are still regional buses. So this is going to be a money-sucking pit
Oh.
for the rest of our lives if it gets off the ground. You know, I'd love, we have a super fan, an old railway man, Mike Bolin. He knows a thing or two about trains. I'd like him to weigh in if he can, because I see zero future for a high-speed rail line between Toronto and Quebec.
This often rears its ugly head here in Alberta too. Now it might make sense, but again, the usership of this.
Yep.
Albertans in particular, we're a vehicle culture.
Yep.
For sure. And they keep trying to, connect Edmonton and Calgary with the proposed high-speed rail. There is, it's called the Prairie Link Rail Partnership. This is a serious proposal. High-speed rail link between Edmonton and Calgary, allowing passengers and freight to travel between the two cities of up to 400 kilometers an hour. Now, it is like a straight shot. There's like two bends in the road. So, anyways, this has sort of been kicked around. It comes back around over and over again. The last serious proposal, which seems to be quite serious, was 2021. It is not to be built by SNC-Lavalin, but what do you want to bet? The Liberals' favorite corrupt engineering firm will be into this right up to their necks if it's in between Quebec and Toronto.
Don't they have a new name now, Sheila? I heard that, kind of like Chrysler is now Stellantis. SNC-Lavalin goes by some other corporate moniker. Pardon?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's probably to get around the stigma of being
being SNC-Lavalin.
a multi-convicted fraudster who also did some business with the Hussein boys.
Yeah.
And
Sheila, that Prairie Link, as you describe it, that'll be even more of a white elephant, given that there's even a smaller population base. And see, the thing is, it looks good on paper, kind of like the 1971 Ford Pinto, but you get into the train at Edmonton, you go 400 kilometers an hour to Calgary, you get off of the train, what do you have to do? I need a car now to get
this is the problem. This is exactly the problem. This is why I never fly to Calgary, even though it is like 4 hours drive for me. Is because by the time I drive to the airport, which is over an hour away, get to the airport, park my vehicle at the affordable parking, get on the shuttle, go to the airport, clear the security and get to my gate, fly the hour in the air to Calgary, and then get to the other side, I have saved zero time and now I don't have my vehicle. So like, why am I flying?
Yeah, and you don't have to be endlessly delayed and frisked like you're some cow at a cattle market, and you ensconce in your own vehicle. You can listen to your own tunes or your podcast. Where so much for flying the friendly skies. The airline industry has made it an absolute misery, Sheila.
Right, exactly. And they put me in that cigarette tube they call a plane to Calgary, and I'm very claustrophobic. I just, you know what? We're a car culture. Good luck to them on this. Quit wasting our money.
Exactly.
We've got an ad read, and then we'll get to just some of the DEI stuff, and we'll talk about April Hutchinson's thing.
Oh, yes.
So this from Positive. If you have a dog, and we've all been there, I've got a cat at the vet for the last 2 days, so I can relate. As I said in the Slack channel, the commercialization of two separate Catholic holidays have led to some hefty vet bills around my place, between Halloween candy and lilies. I've just vet bills like crazy. Anyways, we've all been there. Our dog goes from full of energy to sick and miserable in an instant at the worst times. Then we're calling in vets in the middle of the night or on weekends, trying to find a clinic that will take us in. It's a terrible way to manage your dog's health, not to mention your stress levels and your monthly budget. I hear ya. That's why people are getting the Pet Emergency Kit by Positive. It contains critical medications and supplies that can not only keep you out of the veterinary office, but may even save your dog's life. Their cats. Sorry, I'm thinking about my cat at the vet. Their kits contain critical medications like activated charcoal, styptic powder, and more. It might save your dog's life. Head on over to Positive, that's spelled in the cute way, PAWSITIV.com, and use the code STUDIO to get 15% off your pet emergency kit. April Hutchinson, our friend
Yes.
April Hutchinson. She has an upcoming event in Edmonton, actually this Saturday, with Canadians for Truth. If you want tickets and more details, it's at canadiansfortruth.ca. Her appearances with NHL superstar Theo Fleury, and of course, Rebel News alumnus Adam Sos. April, as you know, is a Team Canada powerlifter, advocate for fairness in sports, someone who has overcome great trauma and adversity to achieve the heights of her sport, only to have the activists do their best to take it all away from her because she spoke out about biological reality. If you want tickets, again, that's canadiansfortruth.ca. I'll be there. My friend Lisa will be there. It's Saturday. Doors open at 6. Show starts at 7.
And Sheila, I just want to bring back April Hutchinson to the outrageous Carney quote of soon in America, diversity will be a crime. No, speaking out against radical transgenderism in Canada is a crime. She questioned the logic of having biological males compete with females, and she got a 2-year suspension. So kind of sounds like the crimey part when you question diversity is right here in Canada.
Right. There's no consequences for the other side.
Yeah.
For any of their bad behavior. It is only for those who speak out. Let's look at this one. This one was quite interesting. Trans Trudeau aide. And I'm going to be my carefulist.
Oh, yeah.
Trans Trudeau aide defends running female race and beating girl age 12 to the fastest time. Lisa and I talked about this the other day on the live stream. It's nice to see that the Daily Mail picked it up. Transgender aide to Justin Trudeau's Minister for Women.
Wow.
Women defended, I'm just reading this, don't come at me, defended her title, defended her participation in a race where she beat a 12-year-old girl to the fastest female title. Nathanielle, feels like that's a low effort name. Nathanielle Morin won the women's 5K road run by almost 6 minutes.
Unbelievable.
In Ottawa, Ontario in February 2024, demolishing the rest of her competition in the 30 to 39-year-old female category with a finish time of 25 minutes and 32 seconds. That's incredible. The second fastest runner across all women's tournaments that day was a 12-year-old Cersei, I think that's how you say it, Hugenrad, with a time of 26 minutes and 8 seconds, who ran in a separate age group to Morin. This poor little girl, beaten by somebody who works for the women's ministry.
Despicable. Sheila, once again, this is a trans woman, which means this is a man presenting as a female. And tell me this, for those in the LGBT radicalized mafia who say that there is no advantage, there is no biological advantage of a man competing in female sports. Riddle me this, Sheila. Why is it's always 100% trans women, i.e. men pretending to be women, winning, whereas you never, ever see a trans man, i.e. a woman presenting as a man winning? And as a matter of fact, Sheila, if I was running any sporting organization and a trans man wanted to compete with the real men, you are more than welcome, because you are at such a disadvantage. If you can compete with real men, you must be one of the most sensational athletes in the history of athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel good about stealing victory from a 12-year-old girl? How do you feel good about that? Like, I don't understand. And you are right. This only ever goes one way. And that's for obvious reasons. Yeah. I realize that your questions are completely rhetorical. See my statement regarding my participation as a trans woman in sport. No, you're not competing in sport. You're competing against women and girls. Anyway, let's move on. I've got 2 more stories I kind of want to talk about. we'll talk about the Trudeau or Canada cutting off funding for graves, and then we'll talk about the chief export of Canada these days to the rest of the world. It's not oil and gas. No. There's no business case for that. It is cultural Marxism. If I had to put a pin on it, the anti-colonialist lefties are colonizing places of the world who did not have a sexual revolution and do not want a sexual revolution with the worst parts of the sexual revolution. I'm having a tough time pointing to any of the good parts of the sexual revolution. For example, there's this. And again, people are going to say, Sheila, it's 30,000. Nothing. It's groceries for a year for your family. The Trudeau Liberals spent $30,000 on a transgender DEI program in Pakistan with a timeline that doesn't add up.
Oh my God.
It was from October 7th, 2017 to April 30th, 2017. So back in time. Improving the lives of transgender and the intersex community in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa sorry, please. I'm very sorry. My pronunciation of Pakistani names is not great. By promoting inclusivity, peaceful pluralism, and respect for diversity through an integrated and multi-actor approach.
Sheila, sorry to cut in, but I can only think of one way to improve the lives of transgenders in Pakistan, and that is give them body armor, okay?
Do you know what? These are people I would actually prioritize in the immigration queue. If you are a sexual minority in one of these places where you will die if you are one, I'm not sure that I would have I think that might be real refugee status based on persecution. But this is a place, as I write in the article attached to my video, Pakistan's a country where women don't even have basic rights.
Yeah. Where
Christian and Hindu minorities face systemic persecution, like reading the Bible will get you arrested for blasphemy.
Jeez.
And LGBT individuals risk their lives just by their mere existence. Does anybody think that this money went to any good besides enriching consultants in the Western world who probably produced a pamphlet and everybody in Pakistan was too scared to touch it lest they be associated with the LGBT community where they might now get rounded up by the religious police? Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
The whole thing is a crock from the get-go. I mean, the very idea selling transgenderism in Pakistan, isn't that kind of like going to a nudist colony and trying to sell itching powder? You know what I'm saying? By the way, Sheila,
Yeah.
do you remember last summer you and I went to a nudist colony? We kept
Yeah,
our
I felt like
clothes off.
I felt like I had itching powder on me the whole time on the way home. And the people were the nicest people. They were willing to
great.
talk to us the whole time. I was in a bizarro world. I was like, 10 years ago, where has this career taken me? I've gone all around the world, holding the government to account. And yet on this fine summer day, outside of the major metropolis of Toronto, I find myself with David Menzies talking to a pair of nudists about government overreach.
Where were your eyes during the interview, Sheila? That's what I want to know.
I still suffer ocular damage from drawing my eyes upward towards the sun and praying for the sweet release of blindness.
I didn't have that problem.
No.
Anyway.
Jeez, what a bizarre assignment. I left actually sort of changed, not in a multitude of ways, but I'm still just, in spite of it all, in spite of myself, glad I went, because I realized, like, these guys hate the government too.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You can find common ground with anybody if you're willing to talk to them. And I was willing to talk to them, and they were more than willing to talk to me. And I think that is that's the life lesson of the nudist colony visit with David Menzies. Completely.
That is the naked truth. See what I did there, Sheila? Barry Horowitz, pat on the back.
But One last story before we wrap the
Yes.
show. Maybe we have some chats, maybe we don't. We'll see. In spite of the liberal claims of genocide, wouldn't you know it, the Canadian government has cut off funding to the committee seeking to locate unmarked graves. I would just get these people shovels. I believe they're on clearance at the PV Mart because PV Mart is closing to my great dismay, but
No.
they have not found a single body, and now they're not even looking for them anymore. And again, I say, as I said from the beginning, if we are to concede that a genocide took place here, why aren't we trying to get to the bottom of it, get to the facts, do an official count? And the United Nations, for all their flaws, are actually really good at documenting genocide. Stopping them, not so great. But documenting a genocide after the fact, they're experts in it. Why were they never called in to deal with this in a culturally careful way? That was never done. None of it. It's almost as though they know that continuing to investigate, or even for that matter, beginning to investigate, would cause the scales to fall off everybody's eyes and the lies to come apart.
No, and it's amazing, Sheila, because going back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, at my old alma mater, when it was still called Ryerson, when the mob of hooligans came to tear down the statue of Egerton Ryerson, spray painted on the statue or behind it, my memory's a little foggy, was the slogan, "Dig them up." But there's no them there.
Right.
This is the hoax of the century.
Yeah, I mean, they have to cut the funding
Yeah.
for the excavation, because if the funding means excavation and excavation means the lies come undone, then we cannot have excavation. We can only have this lie that has never been debunked. And I don't understand it. If you thought sincerely, and I'm sure some people do, if you thought sincerely that a member of your family was killed, either through neglect or otherwise, or abused in this facility, wouldn't you want to get to the bottom of it? I know I would. Maybe maybe I can't relate. I don't know. But if some institution had done my family a systemic wrong that generations of my family now henceforth still deal with, I would want accountability. And with reconciliation and accountability, the first part of truth and reconciliation is truth. And we're just not there yet.
Unfortunately, Sheila, just asking some hard questions, just fact checking the numbers
It's
will get you
denialism.
canceled. And it's happened to people in this country just for
sure.
questioning the narrative.
Yeah, it's denialism. Actually, right now, I forget it's called Sugarcane. Sugarcane, I think, is nominated for an Oscar. Is that right? It's on Disney Plus. It's about a residential school where they claim that a priest and a student had a baby, and the baby was thrown in the incinerator, and then the incinerator was found in the incinerator. And this is like written by a descendant of the baby. And the whole thing, they claim it's a documentary. The whole thing is based on a lie. Complete lie. The girl who did in fact abandon her baby in the incinerator served time for it. No nuns abandoned any baby in the incinerator. The girl did it. She served time for it. And the baby was not the child of a priest. And yet the lie permeates the culture.
Sheila, maybe I'm showing my age here, but I remember when Disney was putting out movies like Dumbo and Cinderella and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, they probably can't call it that anymore. But I mean, what you just described as something from a nightmare Hannibal Lecter would suffer. And this is coming from the Imagineers at Disney.
Well, Disney didn't make it, but they are hosting it on Disney Plus, and it is a complete fabrication. nominee for documentary. It's not a documentary. The people debunking this, by the way, I should tell you, Michelle Sterling from Friends of Science, in her other capacity, not with Friends of Science, but she used to work not only with Indigenous people, but like in archival records. And she's done some great work to pull this apart. People debunking this have pulled court records, newspaper articles, on this story. It is a complete fabrication. It's out there on one of the largest streaming platforms of the world, presented as a documentary, as true, libeling the Catholic Church and everybody involved and exonerating the actual criminals in all of it. It's crazy.
Well, Sheila, as you know, I always look for the silver lining, no matter how sordid the story is. And given that you said this is streaming on Disney Plus, thank God Fraulein Freeland and her family will be spared watching this travesty, because as you know, folks, this is how to get ahead in our horrid economy. Cancel your Disney Plus subscription service. And by the way, Sheila Gunn-Reid, I don't believe for a second she canceled her subscription.
Of course not. Her kids would eat her alive if they canceled Disney Plus. Pack up like little wolves. Yeah, if you need a reason to cancel Disney Plus, this is it, not Chrystia Freeland's inflationary fight against the things that she did to make it harder for Canadians to live in this country. I think that's the show, unless we have any chats.
Any chats, Olivia?
Great.
Okay. Well, and by the way, before you go, Sheila, please, when you get off the air, send me a text on how you want me to edit a specific video, because I know how busy you are. So this might be my only kick at the can today to get at you. So thank you very much, Mike Alisi. Well, folks, that's the end of the show for today. I believe we're back on Friday. Is that correct, Sheila?
Are you and me? I'm here tomorrow. I just am here every day. This is what I do now.
There you go. The 24/7 Sheila Gunn-Reid. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, especially those who made those donations, and extra especially Annalise, of course. You were just too kind. So Sheila will be back here tomorrow. I'll be back, I believe, on Friday. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
LGBT advocacy. I know that the government had been looking at a possible envoy for LGBT rights. We know the US has just canceled having that position. There's a lot of discussion about the funding for LGBT people worldwide and what's happening with those programs. I'm wondering where that puts Canada, having a feminist foreign policy, chairing the G7. What is your broader thinking on advancing this issue, given how sensitive it is in the US right now?
Well, the US will do what the US does, and the Trump administration will take its own decision. When it comes to Canada, I've presented a vision of pragmatic diplomacy, where ultimately we're engaging with countries that we don't necessarily always see eye to eye, but we have to do so to defend our national interests at a time where, and you're seeing it even today, where geopolitical tectonic plates are moving, and it is affecting the security of all countries on Earth. We will continue to fight for Canadian jobs. We will continue to fight for Canadian way of life, and ultimately we will do that while having a very strong foreign policy.